Meeting in 1 minute, please. Okay, I will now call to order this joint meeting between the city and county planning commissions. Thank you for your attendance tonight. I'll start with working through the first couple items on the city side, and then we'll turn it over and allow the county to do their same opening procedure. Ryan, would you please note the attendance roll call for the city portion of the joint meeting?
Roll is noted.
Okay. Approval of the agenda. There is one agenda item, as I understand it, and that is to discuss the north border lines. I was not at the last meeting. My understanding is we have a couple of different proposals that we're trying to reconcile into one proposal. So that'll be our agenda item. But with that, I'll ask for an approval from the city for the agenda in front of us.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda. Also, we'll move on and talk about the minutes. There's a lengthy amount of minutes. I hope you've had a chance to read them. I would seek a motion and second to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
So moved.
Okay, motion and second to approve the meeting. With that, I'll allow the county to.
Okay, so we'll move on to the approval of agenda. Is there a motion on the county side?
So moved.
Motion by Diedrich,
Second.
second by Vanderwall. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of minutes from the June 13th meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Vanderwall,
Second.
second by Diedrich. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on then to the public hearing and action on the joint jurisdiction zoning map of the Brookings County and City of Brookings, South Dakota. Basically, June 13th, the county, due to input from the public hearing, made a motion to amend the document to move the northern boundary back to the original boundary because of what we were thinking there. We voted that way, and the city voted to keep it where it was, and now we're just trying to see if we can find common ground in here at this point.
Okay, that is also my understanding. Either the city or the county, would someone like to make an introduction on the topic and bring us back to speed? Mike, do you want to do that, or?
Sure. Essentially, there's agreement, and votes were taken to approve the ordinance. There's discrepancies in the boundary line, and so I'd like to have a meeting again tonight to see if we can come to a consensus between the city and the county planning forward to our elected officials, that it's a consistent recommendation to both bodies, the city council and the county commission. I don't know, Richard, if you want to pull up the one map that shows the red line is what the original joint jurisdiction boundary was that was set basically back in 1980 or approximately thereof. The green boundary is what the subcommittee recommended to the respective city and county planning commissions at that June meeting. The city voted to recommend the green boundary line onto the north area, and the county planning commission recommended to reduce that boundary line back to the red amount. Essentially, what we're talking about tonight is that grade shaded area on the north. Also on the map are some lightly shaded green parcels. Those are parcels that are owned by various governmental entities, primarily being the city, the county, the state of South Dakota State University. There's conservation districts, there's Eastern Dakota Crop Associations, and the SDSU Foundation, as well as the United States government. So we just wanted to share that with you. We've been through this, a number of years working on this through the subcommittee and the joint planning commissions. I think there's maybe some misinterpretation. It's not a land grab with joint jurisdiction zoning. It's an opportunity when proposals are submitted in these areas to jointly look at those and consider them, and to look at, okay, when those proposals are built out, if and when the city gets to those areas, how do we develop through, around, under, over? How do we absorb them into the community? Are we ensuring that adequate right-of-ways are maintained? And it's not to necessarily as a land grab, but it's more of a planning tool. So with that, the primary area tonight is to look at that gray shaded area and see whether or not we can reach consensus on where that boundary line should be. Should it be at the red line? Should it be at the gray line? Is there an area in between? Or is there a different solution or recommendation that somebody may have?
Mr. Pierce, can I add one?
Go ahead, Luke.
Luke Muller, First District Association Governments. I've been along with you every step of the way here. Mike did a great job of explaining in context as far as what's going on here. I want to remind you as the boards why you're here. The fact of the matter is that you've got a joint jurisdiction ordinance in play today. It's got the red boundaries. It's got some sections of ordinances that you're dealing with right now, your living life. In order to update that ordinance and have the text that we talked about and recommended for approval back in whenever it was, June, and in order to have that take effect, we have to have a 100% agreement and adopt the exact same ordinance. Admittedly, the county commissioners and the city council has the ultimate say in the adoption, but at some point, someone's going to have to make a change, whether it's for the county to one of the county entities, whether it's the planning commission or the county commission to move that line back to the north, or whether it's the other way and the city does that, whether it's here or at a council meeting. In order to update the ordinance from what it was in 1980, someone's going to have to make a change. And that's why at the last point, you held your public hearing as you were supposed to. You met jointly during. That's why scheduled was a public hearing, because when people left this room, there was confusion. So there was a public hearing scheduled in case there is a discussion wanting to do something with the change to the boundary.
That, and I think that's a valid point, is that we're trying to come up with a solution here along the north boundary, but so much work has been put into the joint jurisdiction update of the plan. We certainly don't want to lose sight of that. I think with that, we should open it up for public testimony and see who has comments that they want to make on this particular topic. Are we allowed to do that without a particular motion on the table?
Yeah, at that point, I think you're going to have to maybe even break from the rules of order and go ahead and do that.
I'm sorry, David. So are we allowing public testimony at this point? Okay, let's go for it. Anybody in the audience that wants to speak on this particular topic, feel free to come forward and share your opinions.
Please be limited to 5 minutes.
Or 4. 4 would be better. Three could be the.
You're talking about adding into this, and I have not heard yet any good reason to do that. I haven't heard any public outcry that this needs to be done. And my question is, if you're going to put some restrictions on my property, are you willing to reduce my taxes? I don't think you are. So you're putting a burden on me with no remuneration for it. And I see no reason for it. We're a long ways out there. We're on the other side of this good city dump that we deal with the trash that comes by. We don't need more restrictions, in my way of thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Please do so.
I'm in the same area. I have a horse ranch. Horse ranches and cities don't go hand in hand. So I don't know how you guys plan to work with that. I've been there over 28 years. We've had horses there. We have numerous horses, cattle, and I don't know how your guys plan to handle that, or if I was to ever sell it, how the next person would handle it. That's my question. Thank you.
Others that want to make comments, get issues on the table?
Angie Boersma, Ideate Architect. Concerns as we move further to the north with the joint jurisdiction boundary line is that as we start thinking about the future growth of Brookings, and this is a concern for both parties, I don't have the solution. As we think about the future growth of Brookings, right now it is functionally impossible to think about residential development as we move north into the joint jurisdiction area in any way, shape, or form, because we can't seem to get past this body in order to do it. And so if we're going to expand the joint jurisdiction boundary, we need to come up with a better solution for how to propose residential development north of Brookings, because right now it's not practical. And as Brookings continues to grow, north is one of the ways that we have to think about growing. So just want to put that for consideration. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, I have comments from private citizen Brian Gatsky. An email and one of these thoughts and concerns expressed this evening. I have no conflict with the joint jurisdiction, but would neighbors do not want it. I work for the taxpayer. Sometimes politicians forget that. I support this, but when 4 major landowners, farmers who are county farmers, object, and that is why I said just leave the north boundary where it is. City of Brookings Utilities has no plans per Erie Quit to go north unless someone pays the bill for installation and permitting, which is quite high. City of Brookings typically does not annex until Utilities says okay and they have land adjacent. Currently, the Utilities is not even running utilities north of Highway 14 bypass, even with the new expansion on 22nd. Erie Quit did acknowledge that someone can pay for it, it would make sense, but not in the utility budget. Houses are all in close proximity and so many CAFOs that it's not likely to go in just due to the setback and aquifer. SDSU keeps buying land and it does not matter what the joint jurisdiction is because the state land can do what they want. At the current growth of the city, it will be 80 years before they will fill in the south side. The city should clean up their mess on the south side with the past. If they joint jurisdiction want to consider that rural housing eligibility, then they do not spot zone like they wanted in the southwest corner, but give it all up to the joint jurisdictional area and let it go. Sunnyview Addition is a nice design and private. If the joint jurisdiction ever looked at a development with real estates, that would be a very good design. Thank you, Brian Gatsky.
Other public testimony? Anyone else wishing to speak at this time? How about amongst the commissioners? Who's got comments they'd like to share? Insight. And I open that up to the county and city officials too. If you've got comments you want to share, we're looking for insight as to a step forward.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I'll just ask a question. On the process
whatever we agree to for the boundary of this joint jurisdiction area, what would the process be to add a section in 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
It would be the same process we're at tonight. We'd have to amend the joint jurisdiction zoning ordinance. The map is part of the ordinance, so you go through that public hearing process at the Planning Commission. They would recommend if add in a particular area, then it'd move on to the elected officials. And so it's basically an amendment process.
But the process would be the same. Commissioner Mills, I'm guessing what you're thinking is maybe it would be at a point where you'd have a more happening with that land than the blanket change. Okay. Other questions, comments? Do we have an answer for the gentleman with the horses as to how this would impact his situation and going forward?
As of now, you're still allowed to continue that use. You're not for slider. You're not being denied any use of your land that you currently have now. Then that would be, at that time, that would be discussed at that time. If there's no growth towards that area, you continue to operate like you are. But if there's getting growth out in that area, then we work together to see, you know, is the daylight coming to an end on that, on your particular operation? Or will it be moved into the city at that time? We want to make sure when and if that day comes, everything is on the same page so that can transition that smoothly into that, so we do avoid the situation we have now south of town with the spot zoning around here, because that is, and not just south of town, but all over town. That raises some really severe issues right now on land use and what they can do and what they can't do. Why did they allow that back then? How come we didn't change that now? So it brings up a lot of questions and everything. This way it streamlines that, takes some of the questions out of that.
Mr. Chair, if you'd let me just, I pulled up the ordinance here, just quickly, without knowing if he's over the shallow aquifer or not. What I could point out is that if he's got over 10 animal units, animal equivalency units, which would be, 5 horses, 10 cows, something like that. If he's over that amount, he would be capped at 499 before he would need another permit in that area, is what that amounts to. Not stating anything about, well, at that point he'd be essentially have that permit would be vested up to that level. The points in which he would need a new permit, meaning what about the next guy or whatever, the points in which you need a new permit, if you're okay with me enlightening you, it'd be a new CAFO, and that's feedlot, right? CAFO equals feedlot. A new CAFO is proposed where one does not exist, would need a new permit. An expansion is proposed that exceeds the number of animal units allowed by an existing county-issued permit, which would be up to that 499 currently if you're over 10. An expansion in the number of animal units without a county-issued permit that existed prior to 1997, there was a Class C. That would be something over the shallow aquifer. In the event of a change of ownership of a C or D or the existing size, they would just need to sign a letter agreeing to follow whatever conditions, having a nutrient management plan, that sort of thing. An existing CAFO is to be restocked after being idle for 5 years. So if it is idle for 5 years, then it would need a new permit. And in this case, you don't have one. Well, I guess if you violate a state law, then you'd have to get a new permit too. So those are the 5 considerations that require a new permit. Or sorry, the 6 that require a new permit in that joint jurisdiction area. If he's over 10 animal units at the time of adoption, he's up to 499 as long as he's meeting setbacks.
Thank you.
I think if I would like to maybe come back a little, few comments that were brought up about some of the areas. And so if you recall, there was not joint jurisdiction prior to 1980. And so a lot of the issues that we're dealing with now were done before we even had a joint jurisdiction area, and there's lessons that have been learned from that. And if you go back 40 years, actually probably 50 years, everyone was thinking is the city of Brookings is like 2-3 miles from some of those areas. And what we're talking about here is we're not trying to stop things from happening, but let's make sure that we're planning for it so that when the city eventually gets there, and it may not be in our lifetimes, a lot of us weren't around when those prior decisions were made, but we're dealing with them today. And I can guarantee you later tonight you're going to be dealing with some issues that occur in the joint jurisdiction area that you're going to be head scratching yourself and how did this ever occur? And so what we're trying to do is make sure that we're thinking about those things and we're putting provisions in place so that when a city does get there, we can continue that path of growth. We can make sure that we can bring those areas into the city limits. And, we do this through annexation. And so I believe in my 13 years, there's only been one forced annexation. And it wasn't because the property owners were against it. They just didn't want to have to pay for any of the road improvements. But they were fine with the annexation, but technically they didn't voluntarily sign. It was 2 property owners, I believe, maybe 3. So it's not like we're out there trying to force people to come into city limits. It's at their own request that they're coming in. When they see an opportunity that they redevelopment or reuse of their property. So it's not something looking at it from the short term, but looking at it longer term down the road. Because I don't think any of you like to deal with some of these issues where, I'm sorry, if we were to actually put in a residential street width, you can't park in your driveway because you built too close to the road. Or you don't have adequate access to your property. Instead of having adequate right-of-way, you've got a 20-foot access easement. Or in some places, not even adequate access to the property. And so those are the things that we're trying to plan for and address, and making sure that they're preserving the appropriate road widths so that when development does get there, it's not a huge burden on those property owners.
Is there any other discussion from any board members?
Mr. Chairman. At our last meeting, it was pretty obvious that the county wanted to move the north boundaries, and the amendment was passed to move that on. There was discussion, and the city did not accept that and wanted to pass it as it was presented. So because we have this difference of opinions, there was a thought brought up by Chairman Ford that we might be able to mitigate some of the issue of the boundary being premature moved to the north. Premature because there doesn't seem to be a timely development issue up there in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. So maybe a compromise that the county would look at is to, as Chairman Ford suggested, is to review the joint jurisdiction boundaries on an annual basis every 7, or on a review basis every 7 years. 7 years sounds like a long time, but it's really not in planning and zoning, and I don't think a lot's going to happen out there in 7 years, but 7 years from now we might have a better perspective about what might develop out there and what other landowners might have decide to do with their property. So a compromise on the county side, in my opinion, is that we allow the joint jurisdiction ordinance to be reviewed every 7 years from the date of the adoption of the ordinance. And if that protects the city interest to move it back to the north, previous boundaries, with the idea that it could be reviewed every 7 years, should be reviewed every 7 years, they could make that motion to move it and make that, and then our ordinances would coincide at that point. So our amendment would be basically just to amend the ordinances. We've already amended it, but amend it on a separate amendment that basically states that we'll review it on a 7-year basis from adoption. On the city side, it would be an amendment to accept the north boundaries as presented by the county, but also wanting that 7-year review to protect interests on both sides. So if that's an approach, I'd like discussions on that.
Thoughts on that? Is 7 years, if you went such a route, is 7 years the appropriate time window? If you'll all be, your terms will all be over by then.
I mean, 5, 7, or 10. 5 is too short because this took 5 years. 7's a compromise. 10 may be further out than most people would like. So my suggestion was 7, but it can be anything you guys, everybody feels is necessary if they want to do that.
Because the original joint jurisdiction area was adopted in 1980.
Correct.
It hasn't been changed since then.
No.
So we're just trying to make a 40-year-old document more evolving.
Correct. I think from a staff perspective, the text portion needed some significant updates because there's a lot of times where applications come before us in this area from both the city and county perspective where it's like, boy, we wish we could apply your regulations or our regulations because the joint regulations aren't beneficial for anybody. And so I think that's the important thing is at least let's move get to an agreement where we can move the ordinance forward to the elected officials for their consideration. If that's a compromise, I'd be fine with that. If the city planning commission, I think we need to train ourselves to look at this ordinance more regularly than we do to make sure that we're keeping up, making sure it's working for our constituents in this area. So if there's things that are working, great. If it's not working, we need to get together and revise that to make sure it does work for those individuals that live in this area.
Mike, can I ask for a point of clarification, please? We have two different boundaries here. One being, and I believe the red one was the historic boundary all the way around the perimeter, and the green is the proposed. All the conversation we're having tonight is the north boundary. If we make changes on the proposal or come to a compromise, are we strictly just changing tonight?
Just the north boundary.
Just the north boundary, and the changes.
It's a gray area. That's the gray area.
What's gray on your screen?
Okay, so the area down below then, the other parts, would be the green line?
Yeah. So the green boundary is what was originally proposed. And at our June meeting, both planning commissions agreed with that green boundary with the exception of that area to the north. And that's where the difference is. And so, that gray area is the area that, the county voted to include in and the city voted to include in, the county voted to exclude. But the east, west, and south boundaries were previously agreed upon.
Thoughts or comments from the city commissioners on what's...
I'm personally fine with, I would agree that we need to come to an agreement in our past meeting saying, hey, let's revote, let's try it again, and see. I don't have a plan on going that far north in my lifetime. I think it's unlikely. I do think it's possible. I do think we need to be planning for it. But I'd rather see us, I did the quick math and, the whole city of Brookings, including the airport, is under 9,000 acres. And the green line is 46,000 acres. And we're arguing over 5,000 acres. So I think, what Commissioner Bartley's proposing of let's just review it more regularly, I'm fine with that.
I guess I have a question to both Mike and Richard. You guys do the majority of the work. on these reviews, do you want to limit the review to the joint jurisdiction area at 7 years and possibly review the ordinance at 10? Or is it better to just do it all at one time in 7 years? Or is it better to do it all at one time in 10 years? Just your opinion.
I don't really have a preference on the number of years. I mean, 7, 10, it's 3 years. It's probably not a big difference. I think what's going to force us to look at things sooner is if other development policies change, whether it be city, county, rezonings, and that may force us to look at it maybe a little bit quicker or more regular. I think we're going to have to really kind of see what makes sense if we're getting proposals, requests into some of these areas, whether it be for rezonings or, if there's a significant policy change that would open up some of these areas for development. So 7, 10 years, it doesn't really matter. I think what I'm kind of hearing or seeing some head shaking maybe from the city side is maybe the city would be interested in making a motion to recommend approval of the joint jurisdiction boundary as approved by the county, or with the north boundary line as agreed upon with the county. And that would move that boundary line to the red, and then that would be consistent with the county's recommendation. And then the east, west, and south boundary lines would stay the same. I see some head nodding, so I feel like somebody.
I'll make a motion to approve the joint jurisdictional area without the grade in area as was approved by the county.
Second the motion.
And is there any time reference to that? A review window of some sort?
Review window.
You want to do that? Or do we have to amend
So,
this?
with that being said, we should probably open it up back for to the public, since we do have a motion on the table.
Okay, but I think if we want to put a time constraint on it, I think we need to do that.
I just had a comment, but I don't know that this is the right parliamentary order, but argue for the 7-year instead of the 10-year, because when that review takes place, we've been working on this ordinance for over 5 years. It doesn't happen in a real short period of time.
I would agree, but I think if we're going to make we should have our time limit in the original motion.
I think we should have 2 separate motions myself.
There we go. We can't even agree amongst ourselves. Okay, so we have a motion on the city side to accept the boundaries excluding the gray area along the north boundary. Okay, so with that, we'll open up for public testimony. Anyone want to speak to that topic? In favor or opposed?
You'll need to come to state your name and for the record. Thank you.
4 minutes.
4 minutes?
No, or
Got all of
less.
4 minutes? I'm used to going 30 or
I know you
an hour,
are. I know you are.
I think this is a good compromise. We'll know a lot more about it at that point.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Okay, so we have a motion we're going to vote on. Just the city's going to vote on the city's motion, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Clarity of what we're doing? Okay, Ryan, call the vote, please.
Schmeichel,
Yes.
Drew,
Yes.
Mills,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Solom, Aiken,
Yes.
Barjan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now that that is passed, then do we need to do the 7-year review deal in there also?
Yeah, if you want to set like a policy that we want to review the ordinance, at least every 7 years, or start that process. you could kind of basically set it as a policy.
Would there be a motion on the county side for that?
Do we want to make, I guess, the entire joint is reviewed line by line every 7 years? Or are we just going to
Just
say
the
there's,
boundary.
the boundary is being reviewed?
I suppose you could do it as a boundary.
Yeah, I'd go just the boundary.
I wonder if a better plan might be, and I forget the name of the board that we've created that will be handling joint jurisdiction area, that board, every 7 years makes a recommendation whether or not there needs to be a review of the ordinance to make any amendments that are needed, plus the zoning map. And then they would make those recommendations to the two planning commissions. Isn't that where we go?
Can I, Luke Muller, can I make a recommendation? My recommendation would be that you not be so limited as to a specific board that does the review. Allow the future versions to figure out who's going to take a look at it. The most important thing is that you've got a policy that says that every 7 years we're going to be reviewing the boundaries. That doesn't mean that in 2 years you couldn't look at it, or a rule that became super duper important, such as residential development in an area. That doesn't mean you can't look at that in between. So I guess my recommendation would be just to have a policy that you absolutely positively are going to review the boundaries, and that may necessitate something else. That's an ancillary statement. Are you okay with that?
No, and what the problem is, I didn't mean that board reviewed it. That board would make a recommendation to the planning committees who need to do the review. But if you don't say in the ordinance who does that review, who's responsible for bringing that forward, it won't happen. That's my experience.
Then I would say it needs to be the planning commission, because the planning commissions are who where that originates. So I would recommend that it starts at the planning commission and or county commissioners if you want to do it that way.
Just as long as we identify whose responsibility it is to get it on agendas and get everybody together to talk about it. But if we don't say who does that, nobody will do it.
So we would need a motion from the county side to have a 7-year map, joint jurisdiction map review every 7 years by the Brookings County Planning Commission and the Brookings City Planning Commission. Is that correct? Okay, that's what we need a motion from our side on. Did you get that?
I got that. I would make the motion on the county side that the planning commission reviews the boundary map every 7 years.
There's been a motion. Is
Clarification, was that
Mr. Jensen?
just the map, not the ordinance?
Just the boundary.
The ordinance can be reviewed whenever we need to. We're just saying that we want to for surely look at the map at least every 7 years.
Is there any discussion side over this? Seeing no discussion, Richard, would you call vote?
Do we have to ask for public testimony on that first in case it's a public hearing on that amendment?
Excuse me, got ahead of myself. Is there
For what it's worth, this would probably be a handy time to. A part of this whole process that we've gone through, we wanted to make sure that we got the document itself down, the ordinance itself. There is a policy component that does have to be adopted as well. This is a case of you creating a resolution that says we got to approve both land use plans. In the end, what's going to happen is the county's going to have to adopt the components of the land use plan that adopt to this from the city, and the city's going to have to adopt the components of the land use plan from the county. Essentially, you're adopting each other's land use plan. What you're doing today is you're making a resolution that says when we do that, we're going to include this 7-year review in that document, and we promise we're going to do that. Then you have to rehold a public hearing on that policy document later on when we adopt that. So bottom line is, you don't have to open the public hearing tonight. You're going to have one on it.
Fair enough, then. Richard, would you call vote on the county side?
Bartley.
Aye.
Dietrich. John.
Aye.
Vanderwall.
Aye.
Troyan. Jensen. Erickson. And Ford.
Aye.
Motion passes on this county side.
Your motion on our side. Yeah. Is there a second?
Second, Mills.
Okay, are we clear what we're voting on? Okay. Ryan?
Drew,
Yes.
Mills,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Solom, Aiken,
Yes.
Schmeichel. Motion carries.
I believe that's our only agenda item. Are we?
Move to adjourn on the county side.
Do we need to do a motion to take this to the respective county and city officials now that it's been approved that it's a, or will that follow through with what we did previously?
We're fine now that we've got an agreed upon map and the ordinance has already been approved, so we'll move it on to our elected officials, and I believe it's already went through legal review with the state's attorney and the city attorney, so I think we're ready to start scheduling process with the elected officials. So thank you, everyone. It's been 5 years in the making. I appreciate your time and efforts on this.
Thank you.
Move adjournment.
Yeah. So the for anyone that's watching from home, the City Planning Commission will be reconvening next door in the community room. We have one item left on our regular agenda that we had to pause for this joint meeting. So the City Planning Commission will be meeting in approximately 5 minutes in the community room.
And the County Planning Commission will convene at 8 p.m. here in about 15 minutes. So we'll get rearranged. There's a sign-up sheet making its way around. If you haven't signed up yet, when it comes around to you, please sign up when it gets to you.
We'll begin the meeting in 1 minute. Good evening and welcome to the Brookings County Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This meeting is being recorded, televised, and viewable on Swiftel Channel 19, ITC Channel 168, or the Brookings County YouTube channel. And I'll call this meeting to order. First agenda item, approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Diedrich,
Second.
second by Paulson. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Agenda item number 3, items to be added to the agenda by commission members or staff.
I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman, just during my staff report.
Agenda item 4, invitation for citizens to schedule a time on the commission agenda for an item not listed. Seeing none. Number 5, disclosure of conflicts of interest, relationships to applicant or ex parte communication.
I'll have to accuse myself for the down and listed item.
Is there any others? Seeing none, approval of agenda. Is there a motion? Motion by Kleinjohn. Second by Troy. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We will now convene as the Brookings County Board of Adjustment. The Board of Adjustment is a 9-member board which has the power to hear requests for variances, conditional uses, appeals, and non-ministerial decisions of the zoning officer. The concurring vote of 2/3 of the full board membership of the board, 6 votes is necessary for approval of a variance or repeal to the zoning officer. The concurring vote of a simple majority of board members present and voting is necessary for approval of a conditional use permit. In accordance with Robert's Rules of Order, we will require a motion to approve a request before the request can be debated. As a matter of policy, all motions are to be made in the positive. The board, under specific powers granted to it by the state, shall authorize variances from the zoning requirements where special conditions existing on the land will result in an unnecessary hardship for the applicant. Financial disadvantage to the property owner shall not constitute proof of an unnecessary hardship. Agenda item 2022 variance 017. Dawn E. Cable has made an application 2022 variance 017 to the Brookings County Board of Adjustment for a variance Article 4 District Requirements, Chapter 4.03 LP Lake Park District, Section 4.03.03 Density, Area and Yard Regulation, Minimum Lakefront. The property is described as Lot 3, DeBoer Lake Tentonkaha Subdivision, and Government Lots 5 and 6 of the southeast 1/4 of Section 7, Township 111, North Range 51W, Oakwood Township, located at 3 Oakwood Shoreline Drive, Bruce, South Dakota 57220. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Diedrich,
Second.
second by Vanderwall. Richard, would you read staff report?
Yes, 2022 variant 017, Don Campbell has applied for a lakeside variance to replace an existing 12-foot wide by 20-foot long deck with a 12-foot wide by 20-foot long four-season room in the same location, 42 feet from the highest known watermark on Lake Titankaha, which is also known as West Oakwood, which is a variance of 33 feet. The required setback is 75 feet from the highest known watermark. The applicant will need to complete a floodplain development permit to meet the Federally Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, floodplain standards for building in the floodplain as a portion of the lot is in the floodplain. And the applicant will meet the 8-foot side setbacks. Some things to consider are the shape and the size of the lot. DeBoer's Lake Titankaha subdivision was originally platted in 1984 and replatted in 2003 prior to the current zoning ordinance recommendations and requirements. And the comprehensive plan recognizes there will be continued development in those areas of Lake Campbell, Lake Hendricks, Lake Titankaha, and Lake Ponset with various development degrees. Letters were sent to the adjoining landowners, the Oakwood Township Chairman and Clerk, and public notices were published in the Brookings Register on September 20th and 27th, 2022, and the Volga Tribune on September 22nd and 29th, 2022. And we've heard no correspondence from on this particular item. Here's the applicant's variance request. This is their site plan. Shows the shoreline 42 feet from the highest known water mark, the supporting post of the deck, or four-season room, excuse me. The deck is existing. This is a beacon map of the property. The red area is the floodplain. This is the same map without the floodplain, shows this long narrowness of the lot down there. This is the plat of the area when it was replatted. Right here is lot number 3. Just looking in from the road, looking at the garage first. This is looking from the lake shore back towards the south, towards the existing deck and house. And even though you can see it's about an 8-foot elevation, it's still, FEMA calls it in the floodplain, so they still have to go through the FEMA standards and build to our floodplain development ordinance on there. So you can see it's high up on the shoreline, up out of the water. This is where the highest known water mark on top of the deck going towards the east there. This is looking towards the west, towards that highest known water mark there. This is looking back towards the east. This is, the wheel is at 42 feet from the highest known water mark and 12 feet out from the house. This is looking towards the east. This is wheels in that same location looking back towards the west. You can see it will not interfere the view up and down the shoreline. And just another photo looking from the top of the dock, looking back towards the 20 feet. And this is where the end of the additional stop, the stairs will be located in their same position. So they will meet the 8-foot setbacks and no variance is needed for the stairs. So that's all that I have, and the applicant is here this evening. So.
Thank you, Richard. Would the applicant please step forward here? Clear to state your name.
Dawn Campbell.
Do you have anything to add to Richard's report?
I think he was very thorough and appreciate the help. I guess I just wanted to say our home is a governor's home. We've been in it for 20-some years. It's only 960 square feet. So even with just the two of us, we'd appreciate more use of our home and a bug-free environment and a year-round environment. It's been a tough summer for bugs. So our builder is George Houtman, and I'm really reassured with the plans that he has for making it stable and completing the work.
Thank you. Is there any questions from members of the board at this time? Seeing none, just hang tight for a minute there. I'll move to the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that is for this? Seeing and hearing none, is there anybody in the audience that is opposed to this? Seeing and hearing none, I will now close the public portion of the hearing. Is there any additional comments or questions from members of the board? Seeing and hearing none, Richard, would you read the findings of facts?
Yes, I'll read this one in its entirety, and the rest of the variances this evening. I'll just go through and read the highlighted areas. I won't be repeating the same document 3 different times, so. Brookings County zoning variance 2022 variant 017, an application for variance having been filed with the Brookings County Zoning Commission, acting as the Brookings County Board of Adjustment. Copy of the application being attached here too. Such application being made by Don Campbell regarding the following real property. Lot 3, DeBoer's Lake Titankaha subdivision. In government lot 5 and 6 of the southeast 1/4 of Section 7, Township 111 North, Range 51 West, Oakwood Township, located at 3 Oakwood Shoreline Drive, Bruce, South Dakota 57276. After due notice, a public hearing having been held on the application on this 4th day of October. (2022). Number 1, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment hereby finding that the strict application of the Brookings County zoning ordinance would produce undue hardship, that such hardship is not shared generally by other properties in the same zoning district and the same vicinity, that the authorization of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent properties in the character of the district, will not be changed by the granting of the variance, and that the granting of such variance is based upon reasons of demonstrable and exceptional hardship as distinguished from variations for the purpose of convenience, profit, and caprice. Number 2, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment further finding that the condition or situation of the property concerned or the intended use of the property is or not so of general or recurring of nature as to make reasonable, practical the formulation of a general regulation to be adopted as an amendment to the zoning ordinance. Number 3, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment further finding that the written application of the petitioner demonstrates that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or buildings in the same district. That literal interpretation of the provisions of the Brookings County zoning ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of this ordinance, that the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant, and that the granting of the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by the ordinance or other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Number 4, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment further finding that the reasons set forth in the application justify the granting of the variance, and that the variance is a minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structures, that the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general purpose and the intent of the Brookings County zoning ordinance, will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. Number 5, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment further determines and conditions this variance upon the following special conditions or safeguards. A, shape and size of lot. B, DeBoer's Lake Titankaha subdivision was originally platted in 1984 and replatted in 2003, prior to the current zoning ordinance requirements. C, a portion of the property is located in the floodplain and will need to be built to Brookings County floodplain ordinance standards. The Brookings County Board of Adjustment, by at least 2/3 vote of its full membership, hereby grants the above petitioner variance for the above described property as follows. A lakeside variance to replace an existing 12-foot wide by 20-foot long deck with a 12-foot wide by 20-foot long four-season room in the same location, with the support posts for the four-season room 42 feet from the highest known watermark, a variance of 33 feet. This variance is specifically conditioned upon initial and continued compliance with all the conditions and safeguards in 5 above, and upon compliance with all applicable provisions of the Brookings County zoning ordinance. If approved, the Brookings County Zoning Director is authorized to issue any required building permits for construction consistent with the terms of this variance. This variance is not used within 3 years of the date granted. It shall be invalid. Dated this 4th day of October, 2022.
Any additions or corrections to the findings of facts?
Just those dates. I just need to change my dates here.
Chairman, I concur with the findings of facts.
Thank you, Mr. Bartley. Richard, would you call roll?
Bartley.
Aye.
Paulson.
Yes.
Erickson. Dietrich.
Aye.
Kleinjohn.
Aye.
Vanderwall.
Aye.
Troyan.
Aye.
Jensen.
Yes.
And Ford.
Aye.
Motion passes. You are free to go, and you can stop in tomorrow and get your building permit.
Thank you very much.
Moving on, agenda item 2022, variance 018. Richard Wright has made an application 2022, variance 018 to the Brookings County Board of Adjustment for a variance Article 11, Section 11.01A Agricultural District Area Regulation. Number 2, front yard. The minimum depth of the front yard shall be 100 feet. A corner lot shall have 2 front yards. The property is described as Lot 1 of Anderson Addition in the east half of the northwest 1/4 of Section 21, Township 109 North, Range 48W, Parnell Township. Located at 48039 South Dakota Highway 324, Elkton, South Dakota 57026. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Vanderwall.
Second.
Second by Troyan. Richard, would you read the staff report?
Yes. 1 second here. Right, is that the one we're on? Okay. Yes, 2022 variant 018. Richard Wright has applied for after-the-fact front yard variance to build a 17-foot 10-inch by 25-foot 7-inch house addition 75 feet from the right-of-way on South Dakota Highway 324, which is a variance of 25 feet. The required front yard setback is 100 feet from the right-of-way. South Dakota Highway 324 has an H lot, which is a right-of-way lot of 75 feet. And the H lot was platted on April 11th, 1973, at which time the right-of-way distance was increased from 33 feet to 75 feet. And he will meet the side and the rear setbacks. Things to consider are the location of the existing house that was built in 1920, and that the highway right-of-way was increased on April 11th, 1973. Public notices were published in the Brookings Register on September 20th and 27th, 2022, and the Elkton Record on September 22nd and 29th, 2022. Letters were sent to the adjoining landowners, the South Dakota Department of Transportation, and the Parnell Township Chairman and Clerk. Here is the applicant's variance application. Here's their site map. And the highway and the 75 feet. This is their new addition onto the corner of the house, which should match up even with the northwest corner here, all along there. Addition would be even on the north and the east sides of the existing structure. Just the beacon map showing the property. This is South Dakota Highway 324. This is where the proposed addition will go, is going, I should say. Just looking west from the driveway along South Dakota 324, big wide ditch, open area. Looking down the driveway into the farmstead. there. This is looking towards the east along 324. Right away, it'd be just right where that orange marker is from the utility marker right there. This is just looking east from the driveway, showing the open area and yard space north of the house. This is just looking zoomed in from the right-of-way through the trees towards the constructed area here. They did have the foundation done. This is just looking west from the foundation and matching up the north side of the house. And this is just looking towards the southeast, towards the existing structure. So that's all that I have, and the applicant is here this evening.
Thank you, Richard. Would the applicant clear to state your name, please? Clear to state your name into the mic.
Richard Wright?
Do you have anything to add to Richard's report?
No, I don't.
Okay, is there any questions from members of the board at this time? Seeing none, I'll move to the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that is for this? Seeing and hearing none, is there anybody in the audience that is opposed to this? Seeing and hearing none, I'll now close the public portion of the hearing. Is there any additional comments or questions from members of the board? Seeing and hearing none, Richard, would you read the findings of facts?
Yes. Brookings County Zoning Variance 2022, Variance 018, application for variance have been filed with Brookings County Zoning Commission, acting as the Brookings County Board of Adjustment. Copy of the application being attached here too. Such application being made by Richard Wright regarding the following real property. Lot 1 of Anderson Addition, the east half of the northeast 1/4 of Section 21, Township 109 North, Range 48 West, Parnell Township. Located at 48039 South Dakota Highway 324, Elkton, South Dakota 57026. After due notice of public hearing have been held on the application on this 4th day of October 2022. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment further determines and conditions this variance upon the following special conditions or safeguards. A, the existing of the location house that was built in 1920. B, highway right-of-way along South Dakota 324 was increased from 33 feet to 75 feet on April 11th, 1973. The Brookings County Board of Adjustment, by at least 2/3 vote of its full membership, hereby grants the above petitioner a variance for the above described real property as follows. An after-the-fact variance to build a 17-foot 10-inch by 24-foot 7-inch house addition, 75 feet from the right-of-way of South Dakota Highway 324, or variance of 25 feet. This variance is specifically conditioned upon initial and continued compliance with all the conditions and safeguards in 5 above, upon compliance with all applicable provisions of the Brookings County zoning ordinance. If approved, the Brookings County zoning director is authorized to issue any required building permits required for the construction consistent with the terms of this variance. If this variance is not used within 3 years of the date granted, it shall be invalid. Dated this 4th day of October, 2022.
Any additions or corrections to the findings of facts?
Mr. Chairman, I concur with findings of fact.
Thank you, Mr. Diedrich. Richard, would you call the vote?
Yes. Paulson.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Dietrich.
Aye.
Blindjohn.
Aye.
Vanderwall.
Aye.
Troyan.
Aye.
Jensen.
Yes.
Bartley.
Aye.
And Ford.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Moving on, agenda item 2022, variance 019. Darwin Olvestead has made an application, 2022, variance 019 to the Brookings County Board of Adjustment for a variance Article 11, Section 11.01A Agricultural District Area Regulation Number 2 Front Yard. The minimum depth of the front yard shall be 100 feet. A corner lot shall have 2 front yards. The property is described as the northeast 1/4 of Section 33 Township 112 North, Range 50W, Eureka Township, located at 46889 201st Street, Bruce, South Dakota 57220. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Vanderwall.
Second.
Second by Paulson. Richard, would you read the staff report?
Yes. Yes, 2022 variant 019, Darwin Ovalstead has applied for a front yard variance to build a 50-foot by 80-foot pole barn with a 16-foot sidewall. It should be 135 feet from the center of 201st Street. It'd be a variance of 15 feet. The required setback is 150, and he will meet the side and the rear setbacks. Things to consider are the electrical pole and electric line running along the east side of the proposed site, east and south sides of the proposed site. And there's a water line on the south side of the driveway, and the existing half-circle driveway is also used for grain bin access in the yard. Public notices were published in the Brookings Register on September 20th and 27th, 2022, and the Volga Tribune on September 22nd and 29th, 2022. Letters were sent to the adjoining landowners, the Brookings County Highway Department, and the Eureka Township Chairman and Clerk. The applicant's variance request. Here is his site plan. He had a lot of things in his yard. He had a lot of things to put down here. Here's the road, his existing buildings. Here's the proposed building that he would like to build, 135 feet from the road. This is a circle drive coming around here. This is where the power pole, meter pole is. Electric line comes over to the east and heads back to the north, going out to the trees, to the electric utilities power line going across in front of his place. This is where the water line is right there as marked. So just the beacon map of the property right here. This is just looking from the driveway, looking towards the west there. This is looking down the farmstead here. Towards that, you can see the trees here on the left-hand side. This is looking towards the east. This is the existing trees, you know, a clear open road view in either direction. This is just looking into the farmstead, back down the road to the east a little ways. The circle driveway coming in on the very east side of the property. Shows the open area right here. This is where the proposed shed would be going right here. I'm just looking down the driveway again. The wheel is at 135 feet from the center of 201st Street, which is also Brookings County Gravel Road number 38. Right here, this is where the wheel is, 135 feet. Just kind of note right there where that comes in. This is at 150, comes back in a little farther south on the edge of the building there. This is the meter pole and transformer box right there. A line comes around this way. I'll show you in the picture just a little bit later. There's that. This flag over here, it is. Over in this area is where this mark is, where the power line runs back out to the north. And that's all that I have, and the applicant is here this evening.
Thank you, Richard. Please clearly state your name into the mic.
Darwin Ovalstead.
You have anything to add to Richard's report?
I've talked to Sioux Valley, and they're going to put a new box in and move the power line away from the deal. If it all passes, goes through and stuff.
Okay.
I guess.
Is there any additional questions from members of the board at this time? Seeing none, I will move to the public portion of the hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that is for this? Seeing and hearing none, is there anybody in the audience that is opposed to this? Seeing and hearing none, I'll now close the public portion of the hearing and move back to the board. Is there any additional comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, Richard, would you read the findings of the facts?
Yes, Brookings County Zoning Variance 2022, Variance 019, application for variance having been filed with the Brookings County Zoning Commission, acting as the Brookings County Board of Adjustment. Copy of the application being attached here too. Such application being made by Darwin Ovalstead regarding the following real property. The northeast 1/4 of Section 33, Township 112 North, Range 50 West, Eureka Township, located at 46889 201st Street, Bruce, South Dakota, 57220. After due notice, a public hearing having been held on the application on this 4th day of October 2022. Number 1. Number 2. 3. Number 4. Number 5, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment further determines and conditions this variance upon the following special conditions or safeguards. A, location of electrical pole and underground electric line along the south and east side of the proposed site. B, location of water line on the south side of the driveway. C, the existing half-circle driveway is used for grain bin access. D, the Brookings County Highway Department has no objections to the variance request. Brookings County Board of Adjustment, by at least 2/3 vote of its full membership, hereby grants the above petitioner a variance for the above described real property as follows. Build a 50-foot by 80-foot with a 16-foot sidewall pole barn 135 feet from the center of 201st Street, otherwise known as Brookings County Gravel Road number 38, a variance of 15 feet. This variance is specifically conditioned upon initial and continued compliance with all the conditions and safeguards in 5 above, and upon compliance with all applicable provisions of the Brookings County zoning ordinance. The Brookings County zoning director is, if approved, the Brookings County zoning director is authorized to issue any required building permits for construction consistent with the terms of this variance. If this variance is not used within 3 years of the date granted, it shall be invalid. Dated this 4th day of October, 2022.
Thank you, Richard. Is there any additions or corrections of findings of facts?
Mr. Chairman, I concur with the findings and the facts.
Thank you, Mr. Troyan. Richard, would you call vote?
Erickson.
Aye.
Dietrich.
Aye.
Kleinjohn.
Aye.
Vanderwall.
Aye.
Troyan.
Aye.
Storhog.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Paulson.
Aye.
And Ford.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, and you can come in tomorrow or anytime to get your building permit. Thank you.
Moving on, agenda item 2022 CU 012. Misty Jones has made an application 2022 CU 012 to the Brookings County Board of Adjustment for a conditional Brookings Joint Jurisdiction Area Article 4 Agriculture, Residential, and Floodplain and Aquifer District, Section 405, Agriculture District A, Section 408, Special Exemption Number 10, Stables, and Brookings County Zoning Ordinance Article 11, Section 11.01A, Agricultural District, Conditional Use Permit Number 12, Stables. The property is described as Lot 1B, Block 2, Telcamp, Second Edition, in the southeast 1/4 of the southeast 1/4 of Section 13, Township 110 North, Range 50W, Brookings Township, located at 1913th 20th Avenue, Brookings, South Dakota 57006. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Diedrich.
Second.
Second by Erickson. Richard, would you read staff report?
Yes, 2022 CU 012, Misty Jones had applied for a conditional use special exception for her stable located in the Brookings County, Brookings City Joint Jurisdictional Area. The property is located at 1913 20th Avenue, Brookings, South Dakota, north of Ramsdale's Fertilizer on US Highway 14. The applicant would like to board a maximum of 36 horses, with 28 horses inside and 8 outside. They would like to host small events for boarders of the facility and non-boarders. Her business plan is attached in this report and includes the following maintenance, grounds plan, manure plan, and emergency services. The property has been in the Howie family for a long time, with an auto repair business and horse boarding facility located on the property. There has been a horse stable and boarding facility in the property since 1974, before when the Howies owned the property. And they have continued the boarding in the stables along with the auto repair business. They have subdividing the property into 2 parcels, with one for the auto repair business and the other for the horse boarding. The applicant has an agreement with the Howies to acquire the property with the horse facilities and continue the horse boarding and stables. The City of Brookings Community Development Department has reviewed the request and has no objections to the request. Public notices were published in the Brookings Register on September 20th and 27th, 2022. Letters were sent to the adjoining landowners, the Brookings Township Chairman and Clerk, City of Brookings Community Development, South Dakota Department of Transportation, and the Brookings County Highway Superintendent. Here's the applicant's conditional use application. Here's their site plan. Coming off 20th Avenue there, parking lot and trailer parking area, the arena and stalls, pastures and dry locks and paddocks off to the north and east. Here's their business plan. Here's the parcel that it would be located on, would be parcel 1B, right here. This is just the beacon map prior to the parcel subdivision being on there. The map is not upgraded for a considerable amount of time till state law and equalization allows those changes to take place, which would be next March 1st. As far as the zoning or updating of the beacon map, that is, the subdividing of the property. This is looking in towards the north from US Highway 14 down 20th Avenue. This is at the end of that 20th Avenue going into the property at the north end of the driveway. This is looking towards the northwest here, the parking area, turnaround area, and the stables. This would be the barn and the riding area right here. This is on the north end of the north of the barn and the paddock area. They have separate pens out there for horse boarding out there during the daytime. This is just looking towards the west of their pasture area, the manure storage area from that. I believe they just acquired the property, so they probably cleaned it out. So those manure piles probably exceptionally large from what was there when they had the property. So this is just looking towards the northwest, towards the pasture and open area. This is the north end of the paddocks. This is just looking the pasture and open area north of the barn. And that's all that I have, and the applicant is here this evening.
Would the applicant please step forward, have a seat, and clearly state your name into the mic?
Misty Jurens?
Do you have anything to add to Richard's report at this time?
No, that's complete.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments from members of the board at this time? Okay. Seeing none there, I'll move the public portion of the hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that is for this? Come up, state your name, say your piece. Please keep it to under 5 minutes.
Lyle Howie.
Why are you for it?
Well, it's been a horse boarding facility since 1974. I've had it since the early 90s. So why wouldn't I be in favor for it?
Fair enough.
And I own the real estate directly to the west of it.
Okay. Is there anybody else are you done? Okay. Is there anybody else in the audience that is for this? Seeing and hearing none. Is there anybody in the audience that is opposed to this? You might want to sit back in the audience for a second here. Just sit back for a minute, yeah. You're limited to 5 minutes. Would you please clearly state your name?
Jason Unger, Unger Law Office, here with Carrie Burgraff of Ramsdale F&M. It's a property owner directly to the south of the requesting landowner. Mr. Chairman, thanks for recognizing me at this time. This is really not a straight opposition to the request so much as it is a request for some conditions on the granting of this request. A lot of this is based on the assumption that there is a 20th Avenue, and the problem is that that road has been blocked by the neighboring property to the east of Ramsdale F&M. As it sits, and you can kind of see on some of the photos here looking to the north from Highway 14, that road is a 60-foot wide public right-of-way, and the east 33 feet of that public right-of-way is blocked off by the neighboring property owner. That means all that traffic is being diverted to the southbound lane whenever you've got more than one vehicle going on that road at a time. That means all that traffic is being further diverted onto Ramsdale's property. That's enough of an issue, I think, in itself to cause concern. I know this is Ramsdell F&M is located within city boundaries. I've talked with Richard about that. I've talked with Mike Struck about that. I see that in your notes here. Mike Struck did review this. I've since talked with him. He agrees with me. Just looking at simple satellite photos from the road is blocked. And what that means for Ramsdell F&M is that, one, they're the ones doing the maintenance of this road, and the traffic is coming out of their property where they've got a large machine shop shed to work on large agricultural equipment and vehicles. And any traffic that's coming from that southbound lane that's diverted onto their property blocks them from even getting in and out of that shed, essentially. Add to that, we got a little bit of rain today, and we got just a couple photos, but all of that water, because it's not because it's blocked and it's allowed grass to grow in the northbound lane, that's all going onto their property. So now they've got water issues coming in where they're trying to move their own equipment. In addition to the traffic issue that's on that road, and you can see it on this image that you're looking at right now, you've got right in the center of that photo, the kind of the rectangle that's divided into three essentially rectangles. The section in the yellow directly in the north, I don't know if Richard, you can kind of help me point out what I'm looking at here, but where the repair shop is now, there's another easement access that bifurcates Ramsdell's property already from that business. And so they've got traffic going right down the middle of their property, where they've got propane, they've got fertilizer, they got chemicals. There is residential business traffic coming right down the middle of that lane. And then just to the east, you've got another 20th Avenue now that is now encroaching onto their property. So you've got traffic from two separate places that really shouldn't even be there going through their property. So the concern is, and the request is that granting this conditional use would come with, one, a demand to the city of Brookings to enforce that public right-of-way and remove the barriers to that right-of-way. If we can't get that done, I think this is inapplicable for a conditional use, because conditional use are based on the presumption that it's in the public benefit. Well, this is not. This is impeding on the business right to the south. Secondly, you've got an opportunity to clear up what is otherwise something that shouldn't
You have 1 minute left.
Shouldn't really be existing as it is, which is a road from the repair shop to 20th Avenue, as opposed to a not road that's driving right through the middle of a business's property. Ramsdell F&M is willing to work with, and I think the second condition that we're asking you to consider here tonight is that the neighboring parties, which would be the vet clinic to the east, Ramsdell F&M to the west of 20th Avenue, the boarding business to the north, and the repair shop to the northwest, all agree to a maintenance agreement on this 20th Avenue road. It's a designated public right-of-way, and only one person's being negatively impacted by it. Everybody else is positively impacted by it, and there's one person, there's one business that's bearing the cost of this. They do all the upkeep on that road. They're the ones that are also being negatively impacted. You can get a road right along the southern part of that boarding business's property line over to 20th Avenue. They can help you put it in. They can help you lay the gravel for it. And then it's just a matter of getting rid of that easement access that goes right through their property. Whether or not, I don't think you guys have the authority to make that a condition, but I would expect that this board would consider requiring a maintenance agreement between the affected parties here, and that's what we're asking. Maintenance agreement, and that the city of Brookings enforce its public right-of-way. Thank you for your time tonight.
Is there anybody
take
else
any
in the
questions,
audience that's
sorry.
opposed to this?
No.
Seeing and hearing none, I'll now close the public portion of the hearing.
Please step forward
Step
and state
forward
your
and
name
say your
into the
name,
microphone.
then the mic for record.
Arlo Jerns, yes, for other opposition. This is contradicting his part of his statement. My understanding, sitting back there, he's stating that Ramsdale's is taking responsibility in the maintenance of 20th Avenue. And I would completely disagree, because when we started looking into buying this, you shouldn't have 2-foot potholes. Okay, so obviously they weren't doing maintenance on it. I've hauled in 4 semi-loads of gravel, leveled it off the best I can. They aren't the one that flipped the bill. We are, and we're the ones trying to buy the property. But we fixed the property best we could in the meantime and hauled out the manure pile before this hearing today, so that we could show you that we're doing everything we can to make it the best we can and try to be good neighbors. So when another business says that they're doing the maintenance to it and everything, well, I'm happy to share the bill with them if they want. But I didn't go to them and ask them to pay the bill. We have gone to the city, and the city is refusing to maintain the road. And yes, you can clearly see that Sutton Vet Clinic put up some fence posts and cut that road in half, what it used to be. And yes, it's tempting to yank the posts out and put gravel there, but we're trying to be neighborly. That short little distance of a half a block, you aren't going to have traffic meeting each other there. Even when we're full and there's 30 pickups going in and out every day, they're not going to meet on that one block area. It's set up for one lane, and that's all it needs. It's not a major highway. We don't need a big area. And as far as when I put the gravel in there, I did not go over onto their area, Ramsdale's property. I kept it where the road is. If I had known that was going to be an issue, I would have taken a bunch of pictures for you, but that's the way it is. But I contradict some of the statements he made, because Ramsdale's has not been maintaining it. We did.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or questions from the audience? I believe you've used your time. Do you have somebody else that can speak?
I just want to say thank you for the comments, and I think we agree, actually. What Ramsdale's does is they fix that up about once a year, and if they didn't, they wouldn't be able to get their machines out of that shop. And yes, we acknowledge, we got pictures of it. They did a nice overlay of gravel right on that section that goes up to their property. That's not a long-term fix. And that's just one of the investments, one time that they've made that Ramsdale's has been making for the last decade or longer. So I think what you've just heard is that he agrees that this is an issue. And what I think I'm hearing is that he's agreeing that we should work on an agreement to make sure that this is going to be a non-issue for the affected businesses. Ramsdale's happen to be one of them. They're obviously going to be affected by it because it's going up to their property. I think we've got the start of an agreement right here already. And if we can make that a condition of granting this conditional use, I think we're well on our way to getting past this. Again, this comes down to what started out as one property owner taking it upon themselves to literally obstruct a public right-of-way. That's got to be fixed. I know it's city property, but you have the authority to hold back a conditional use until that situation is remedied. Again, conditional uses are based on the presumption that they are for the public benefit. When you've got property owners blocking public rights of way, that's not for the public benefit. Thank you.
I did speak with Mike Struck actually today as well. We talked about that obstruction of that 20th Avenue. He said he had to look further into if we can remove those posts, what we can do. But again, just to reiterate, what we need is just a one-lane stay over. I mean, you know, what it is right now, to have an agreement, I don't think it needs to be tied to the conditional use permit. But to have an agreement to work together on road care, I think that works out for the benefit of everyone. I don't think that needs to be part of the conditional use. It's not that piece we're able to work around. I think that's something the city can work on, but still allow us that conditional use permit, that because we still have access to that building. I mean, we need that, and we did the road maintenance to get access to that building. That additional section of that road that's being blocked right now, I don't think shouldn't delay a conditional use permit. I think it should be still in process. I think it still should be looked at. And I'm still working with Mike Struck to look at that, but I don't think it should delay a conditional permit.
Thank you. Anything else? Is there any other comments from members of the audience?
Lyle again. First of all, thank you for your time, guys. I know it's a lot of time out of your day, but first of all, that barn's been there before Ramsdale's were ever there. And that's the entrance to that horse barn from day one. So, I mean, if you guys remember when Neil Sebring was there, he had horses that'd be the building by the yellow line back there. Used to be stalls back in when Neil Sebring was there. I was there then. That's always been the access to that barn. I've been there since Gary Helt was there before Ramsdale's bought any of it. And he talked about the easement going down to the repair shop. Yes, I have an easement there. It's been there since they put that building there. So there's no reason for any of that stuff to go away. So, and I have been maintaining both of those entrances since I've been there. Since I've had the horse barn, but Ramsdale's have never put any gravel on that road. Never. I'm the one that's done the snow removal there, because I have to get to the horse barn. So when they talk about doing all the maintenance on the road, they haven't done any. Any questions for me? I've been there since 1988. So
none at this time.
Thank you.
Is there any additional comments from the public? Seeing and hearing none, I'll now close the public portion of the hearing and move to the board for comments and questions.
Is there anything happening right now or in the process of happening with the impedance of the right-of-way?
That is within the Brookings city limits, and that would be up to the Brookings Community Development for that. Our office has no jurisdiction within the city limits of Brookings. So it's going to be between the applicants, the landowners, and the city of Brookings to get that.
As far as the maintenance of that particular road, since the city is not taking ownership of the responsibility for maintenance on that road, and it's up to the users of the road, and we require, as a part of the conditional use, a road agreement, road maintenance agreement.
We have with township and other entities. I'm not sure if we could force the city of Brookings to do that.
I'm more concerned about the parties involved being An agreement
An
on a
agreement
road
on it.
maintenance agreement.
Okay, we can word that in there. I have part of that in there, but yeah, we can word that in the findings when we get there.
It is in the findings of fact to have a road agreement.
Yes, it is. It's
Road
underneath there
maintenance
right
agreement?
now. I don't have anything worded in there. I have it that is a Brookings City street. So,
I understand that. Luke, how would we handle that? I mean, it's not a township road.
Well, in all reality, with it being a city right away, they could tell you they don't want to have one on there as well. You really can't hold the city to anything like that either, I would say in that case. So reality is you could have a requirement to have some sort of a road agreement for maintenance of that road, subject to approval by the city, or a letter saying that they're just not a party to it in some way, shape, or form. That's probably how you'd have to handle it. And then as far as the obstruction of the right of way, like Richard said, you really don't have a say in whether or not the city's going to enforce their laws or not, or their ability to exercise it. The reality is that it's entirely possible that was dedicated without any acceptance from the city at that point too, whenever that was platted. So anyway, those are the couple of points. I will say that I would suggest that you use language similar to what you would use for a feedlot or a gravel pit or something, that it's just some sort of a duplication of a requirement for a road agreement.
Three parties.
Yeah, I would think all three parties. Well, I don't know if the city has to be involved so much.
I meant the vet clinic, Rams.
Right. Address for me, there was a comment made about parking on that road. Talk about the parking that, if you would, that you have available on site when you have an event and you have 35 trucks that show up with trailers. Can you keep all that particular parking on your property?
Yes.
Or does it need to be on this road or anywhere else?
No, there will not be any parking on the road itself. The trailers, really, there's about room for a dozen trailers along the property line by the tree line there, maybe on the side. After that, I will tell people they can't park their trailer there. So, I
But
mean.
you
and
have
or-
access property where they can park on your property.
Yes, and there's room in the parking lot, and then, I mean, if we have to, even on the west side of the building, they can park on that side. Because they're not going to have 35 vehicles there all at once. I mean, they're in and out, so parking will never happen on the road. It'll be on the property.
All right, thank you. Richard, is that part of our findings of fact that all parking must be on the
correct. That
applicant's
is
property?
stated in there.
Okay,
No
so we
on-street
understand
parking.
that all parking has to be on the applicant's.
Mr. Chair, and Commissioner Bartley, could I just reiterate that if it's not going to be if it wasn't already planned to be a condition, it probably ought to be memorialized in a condition in case 5 years from now it's a question, that it's no on-street parking allowed there.
Is that the way the findings of facts read, or do we need to make that a condition?
No, that's how it is read in the findings from previous findings that we have done.
That's all the questions I have.
Any additional questions from members of the board? Richard, why don't we move to the findings of facts and see what we come up with there?
All right, this one I'll read in its entirety because it's a new document. It's no longer a variance document. It's a conditional use, so bear with me. It's 3 pages. Brookings County Zoning Commission, Brookings County Zoning Conditional Use Permit 2022 CU 012. An application for a conditional use permit having been filed with the Brookings County Zoning Commission, acting as the Brookings County Board of Adjustment. A copy of the application being attached here too. Such application being made by Misty Jerns regarding the following real property. Lot 1B, Block 2, Tail Camp 2nd Edition, the southeast 1/4 of Section 13, Township 110 North, Range 50 West, Brookings Township, located at 1912 20th Avenue, Brookings, South Dakota. After due notice, a public hearing have been held on the application on this 4th day of October 2022. Number one, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment hereby finding that it is empowered to grant such a conditional use under the following sections of the Brookings County zoning ordinance. Article 11, Section 11.01A Agricultural District, conditional use number 12, stables of the Brookings County zoning ordinance. In Article 4, Section 4.405A Agricultural District, Section 408, special exception number 10, stables of the Brookings County joint jurisdiction area. Further finding that the granting of the conditional use will not adversely affect the public interest. Number two, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment further finds and certifies that the following specific rules governing the conditional use requested have been complied with. Emergency fire and safety plan to be on file. Number three, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment further finds that satisfactory provisions of the and arrangements have been made concerning the following are applicable. A, entrance and exit to the property with the proposed structure therein with particular reference to automotive and pedestrian safety and convenience, traffic flow, control, access in case of fire or catastrophe. Use current driveway off 20th Avenue. B, off-street parking and loading areas where it's required with particular attention to the items in A above and the economic, noise, glare, or other effects of the special exception on adjoining properties and properties generally in the district. No on-street parking allowed. Use on-site parking. C, utilities, refuge, and service areas with reference to locations, availability, and compatibility. I think I've seen a dumpster out there. Do you use a dumpster service now?
There is.
Yes,
yeah.
okay. Must use trash service and for garbage and refuse. D, screening and bufferings, reference type, dimensions, and character. None stated. E, signs, if any, and propose exterior lighting with reference to glare, traffic safety, economic effect, compatibility, harmony, and properties in the district. 16 square foot allowed. F, required yards and other open spaces. None stated. General compatibility with adjacent properties and other properties in the district. It meets the comprehensive planned requirements for the agricultural district. H, roads providing access to the property are adequate to meet the transportation demands of the proposed conditional use. The Board of Adjustment may require the applicant to enter into a written contract with any affected township or other governmental unit regarding upgrading or continued maintenance of any roads used for the conditional use requested prior to the issuance of a conditional use. Just have on there 20th Avenue is a Brookings City street. I'll read through these and we can make changes or additions or corrections when I get done here. Any required notifications to law enforcement or the fire department. Notification of Brookings County 911 and Brookings County Emergency Management of any hazardous materials or chemical spills. J, any safety inspections required. Any required safety inspections for animal or building safety. Number 4, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment further determines and conditions as conditional use permit following additional special conditions or safeguard. Number 1, the Brookings conditional use special exception 2022 CU 012 is good for 3 years or until the applicant vacates the premises, whichever is first. Number 2, best management practice to be used for A, animal disposal storage area. This is from another one that we have done where we had required a concrete floor and stem pads to kind of keep the manure and waste contained to an area. Whether you want to apply that to this one, that is up to you. B, insect control, grassland. C, grassland management. Weed control. D, weed control is needed. Number 3, maximum number of horses is 36 boarded horses with 28 indoor boarding and 8 outdoor paddock boarding. No horses to be left outside. Number 4, any deceased animals to be disposed within 24 hours. Brookings County Board of Adjustment, by at least a majority vote of its full members present, hereby grants the above petitioner a conditional use permit special exception for the above described real property as follows. Conditional use number 12, special exception number 10, horse stable, for 3 years, expiring October 4th, 2025, or when the premises are vacated by the applicant, whichever occurs first. This conditional use is specifically conditioned upon initial and continued compliance with all the requirements and conditions in 3 and 4 above, and upon compliance with all applicable provisions of the Brookings County zoning ordinance. If approved, the Brookings County zoning director is authorized to issue any required building permits for the construction for the. All right. authorized to issue any required building permits for construction consistent with the requirements of this conditional use permit. This conditional use permit is not used within 3 years of the date granted. It shall be invalid, dated this 4th day of October.
I believe it stays consistent with our other applications that we've approved. All right, can we go back up to the road agreement part?
Yep, this is number H right here. State agreement with the adjoining landowner parties on annual road maintenance or road maintenance agreement to be on file with the office.
All right, well, it states right now, it says may require, so if we want to require that, does require or just Board of Adjustment requires the applicant to enter into a written contract with any township or other government, or which governmental agency would be the city regarding the upgrade? The maintenance of the roads, or would it be Board of Adjustments may require the applicant to enter into a written contract with affected landowners, since the city doesn't want to claim the road? Any advice on that, Luke? How to word that better?
I'm working on it. I gotta read it one more time here.
Thank you.
So it's probably a dumb question, but I'm assuming the vet clinic has been approached about whatever's obstructing the right of way to be removed, and they're refusing to do so.
No, I have not approached because again, I kind of wanted to be the good neighbor of not dealing with the area that we have, the space that we have. No, when I talked with Mike, Mike Struck, he was going to look into if they can ask her to remove those or not. That's kind of what I got today when I spoke with him. Yep.
You guys done anything with that clinic and competing right away? You need to address the correspondence up to the mic if you're going to have them come up.
I'm not aware of any discussion that has been had in the past. Yeah, my understanding is that Mike is just looking into this for the first time from the city's perspective, and yeah, I'm not aware of any other prior discussions.
Has the encroachment caused you any issues?
Yes, as indicated, you've got property. I know it's not in your materials.
We can look at it from above.
Put that right there. I'll turn the camera on. Just leave it there, and I'll have you move the picture.
Is that right there? So this photo is showing, if you can see this green grass, that's supposed to be the northbound lane. This is, I mean, on your beacon map, you'll see that the property line is actually staked off essentially right where the grass starts. That's where the initial property line is. So everything this way is Ramsdale F&M property. This public right-of-way extends over to here, and it's this machine shed that faces to the east where they're trying to bring equipment in and out, and anytime you got traffic on there, that's where the parking concern, if there was any traffic going the other way or any sort of parking, you're parking where they stage their machines right outside their shed. So yes, that has happened in the past. It's not an ongoing issue. And admittedly, the biggest concern when we read the business plan is that the events, those kinds of things that are anticipated, where you're talking about 30, 40 vehicles with trailers, and that's a lot of traffic. And If you got vehicles coming in and taking horses out and putting them back in, inevitably, I mean, you see 4-H events all the time. Path of least resistance is just to line up. I don't expect that they're gonna, encourage that, and I don't think it's expected to be an ongoing problem, but it's an issue right now, and this just has the opportunity and capability of just making it or exacerbating that issue. So yes, it's an issue now. Concern is that it'll get worse.
I think what I'd like to just add, just right on this one, we have tried to keep the gravel because there's a washout area right there. So we try to keep it so we can still have a route for water to go. That is something, I guess, really, we are the two businesses that are being affected by this road. I don't see it being an issue that we can't work together for that road maintenance. I want to make sure that people can get in easily and out easily for both parties, for both businesses. There will not be parking on that road. That road is not big enough for parking. So I would not allow, when I'm talking about events, I'm talking small events. Maybe if they want to do like a rodeo practice, something, when I say events, that means the arena has to be closed. So if they want to practice kind of different rodeo things, then I have to close the arena. That would be considered an event. If that parking is too much, or there's too many people for that parking, then I would know ahead of time and I would figure something out or say that doesn't work. Because no, that I totally agree that road cannot be blocked.
So, I don't know if this is a good enough picture or not. Is there anything impeding driving on the grass that is actually the roadway?
There is right here.
Oh, okay.
There's the fence posts, T-posts.
Oh, they've got
that
posts
Sutton
up
had
there.
put in
I
there.
see.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And that is what Mike Struck was saying that he'd have to look into to see if he can move that or request that to be moved or what that is. He assumed when I spoke with him today, he assumed it was kind of just they took care of they mowed the lawn and they noticed maybe people were driving on it in the past, and so since they were taking care of that property, they just fenced it off, is what he thought happened, but I don't know.
I would guess that any agreement from them to move the post and remove the grass it has to be gravelled at that point to make it wider, which is a compromise, so to speak, but that may be part of your negotiations on this road agreement is he has to participate by removing the posts and the grass, and you would all agree to improve the gravel all the way back. Does that seem reasonable to all parties? Obviously, that's not here to give his approval, but if we make a requirement, all parties have to come into a road agreement. How do you think you can work that out?
I'm just an attorney, but my understanding is that's essentially what the goal is here, is to get that street, that right-of-way, operating the way it's supposed to. And if that means Ramsdale F&M is working with you guys to figure out how to get it there, that's a joint.
I don't know that we want to get specific about moving the poles, but I'd like to see a road agreement that addresses that issue with the city. Right. You show them we've got an agreement, and
Yes.
or at least a negotiation for an agreement that gives you a little bit more weight when you get to the city.
Exactly. And I appreciate your comments. Thank you for weighing in on that.
Mr. Chair,
Things also to keep in mind, if they're going to enforce it on that side of the boundary, be prepared for right now you have the whole length of that driveway that you use to go in and out of your property. For your zoning classification, you might be restricted to a 40-foot driveway. Just something to keep in mind. I don't know what the zoning is, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you go back to the Highway 14, you're looking at the width of the entrance that was.
Right, I'm not talking about Highway 14. I'm talking from 20th Avenue going north, going in the west into your property. That's where your access would be off of that. And for the zoning of your property, you might have a 40-foot driveway as the widest driveway that the city allows for that zoning specification.
Yeah, I think that's getting pretty ahead of where the city's at with it, but I understand. Right. I understand.
And if you want that road area is noted on the plat, so that is all there. So when that got brought into the city, when they annexed in there, it was taken in as that. And this was all done prior to the joint jurisdictional ordinance, prior to 1980 when that into effect. It went into the mid-70s and 80s, and this is what we're dealing with right now.
Well, what the request is, and again, as I
You know, right, I'm
understand
just,
Mr. Bartley's comments.
just saying that.
It is a
be
private
prepared.
road
It could be
agreement
on
to
the
maintain
other
it,
side,
and that's what the request has been.
so.
Mr. Chair, if you're ready for one suggestion, I would actually, before I do speak, would you leave that up for just a second, that picture? I just wanted to point out, I'm going to work backwards from where I wanted to start here, but I did want to point out from the standpoint both for applicant and the individual representative for Ramsdale too. By the way, Luke Muller, First District Association Local Government, act as extension for staff for the county. I didn't introduce myself for this one. One thing to keep in mind for both entities involved is that private property line, clearly this is a, 20-foot from center easement right-of-way or whatever the right-of-way is. The property owner, I don't see anything that's going to stop that property owner, the Ramsdales that is, from parking vehicles right along the edge of that on their own private property. So it could get pretty tight in there, and I think that's what the representative's getting at, is that even if for them to use their property, they could do that to that end, making things pretty tight. Just be advised that that's their property, they can do with it what they want. As far as the question on with the posts sitting there as well, oftentimes, and I'm not sure where the city of Brookings is going to land on this, but generally speaking, that winds up being a law enforcement on an obstruction of right-of-way standpoint as opposed to a zoning matter. So the bottom line is that's probably going to be a complaint that falls at the police department when it's all said and done. But I think we all appreciate the community development director jumping on that and saying I'll look into it. As far as tying that to a condition, I agree with the board. I really don't think that's probably in your best interest unless you really want to go on record and file a complaint yourself. That would be that standpoint. And then lastly, if we go back to the conditions that were on there now, if you want to flip back to that, something relatively simple just to add to what you had in your findings would be where you have the comment that says reference to an agreement with township, blah, blah, or other governmental entity. At the bottom, if you want to add into that where you've got your special conditions or other entities maintaining 20th Avenue, entering into an agreement with other entities maintaining 20th Avenue. And that would be all you'd have to add to that section. The last point I want to make with regards to that road is that from a standpoint, I'm not saying you've got to do it this way or anyone has to do anything, nor am I saying you should throw this in as a condition. But I do want to point out that oftentimes when I run into these other 11 counties I work in some of their communities is that the expectation is different for this business versus that business, and the times that they need it and the needs are different. Oftentimes what I wind up seeing is the maintenance of this stretch ends where my approach ends, and then it's on the next person to go farther. That's not a strength or a downside or a plus side. It's just for everyone's knowledge. It's not abnormal for one entity to say, I got to here and you got to there, and we'll figure it out from there. So just kind of wanted to lay that out there that you could be seeing that come back to you.
What was that wording you wanted on here, or stated on there? Is that where the board wants it? At the end of this letter H? With other entities, or?
I gotta have that up there so I can look at it to be able to tell.
Yep.
Just say any entities.
Should I put road agreement in there, or just agreement?
An agreement for maintenance with any entities which may be doing so already.
Thank goodness for spell check at 9:18.
Again, do we want to change that from may require to requires?
This is our standard findings. Do we change that on this document? Or just add that to the bottom?
Well, you put it before entering into an agreement, you'd say the Board of Adjustment requires entering into an agreement. If you don't want to change the standard document.
Is that the word we want there?
Yeah, because it says may require, and then this particular part it says requires. Do we want to somewhat defined entities on 20th Street?
If you want me to keep editing, I will, and I would just say any entities, comma, including other adjacent property owners. Which are already providing maintenance. Of 20th Avenue.
Already providing maintenance, that means that Clinic is free and clear of their portion.
I would agree with that point. It may require some others, but keep in mind, the impetus for this is for the property to the north to have a permit. So unfortunately, it's a pretty weak position at that point.
Up front.
You'll need to come up front and address the board with your name and.
If you could put your picture back up, that'd be great, and I can point at it a little bit.
You can keep it if you want.
Thanks. First of all, it's probably been, I don't know, 18, 20 years ago, I tried to address this road with the city, and they wouldn't do anything as far as developing this road unless they had an agreement with the landowners on both sides of the road. And I can tell you that Sutton, that's when the posts went up about 18 years ago, because they didn't want nothing to do with the road. She told me they had no benefit in the road because they only access the front of their building, so they didn't want to participate in the road. And there's a lot to that road, because if you look up in the right of way, right off of the highway, is the natural gas fittings are right in the middle of the road. So there's a lot of issues with this road that the city never wanted to address. So that's the way it's been. Back when Neil Sebring was there, where that fence post is a lot line. So Neil and we just took care of it. We're just good neighbors. We just took care of it. And that's why if you look where her asphalt stops, that's on the edge of the road. So after we addressed the road, then they asphalted the lot, but they only asphalted to the edge of the road. I don't know if she's thinking someday that was going to happen, but I've been on the city, I've been to the county, I've been to the township to address this road, and I could never get anything done. So that's why it's the way it is. And that waterway that's through there now, that property used to always be flat, and Ramsdale's has tried to make a waterway there to shed the water from their new building there, which is fine. But that's why you see the water in the picture there. I don't know if you guys, I'd love to see you get that. I'm sure they would love to see you get this road done too, but I'm telling you, I've addressed this road for 18 to 20 years. That's the history of it anyway. Nobody wants to take the responsibility for it. Thank you.
Are you happy with how it's worded, Luke?
Instead of saying, including other adjacent property owners, get rid of which are already providing a road maintenance and just replace it with
You want road maintenance out also?
for maintenance of the road, and just after the comma say for maintenance of the road. That's you're there. Yeah, for maintenance of the road will work.
Is there any other additions or corrections to the findings of facts?
Can I ask something real quick? On there, the signage, I think somewhere on there it said 16 square feet. I do have a sign that's actually 4 by 8 on the tree line, already mounted on the ground, and actually you can see it in this picture, but is that going to be allowed?
We're working on getting that signage up. Right now, it's 16 square feet in the current zoning ordinance. That's what we have to apply there. So we are working on updating that when we're updating the zoning ordinance coming up here within the next year. So as of right now, it would have to be 16 square feet. But
Did she say it's already on site?
It is.
is it one that you did or one that was there?
I put it up.
Okay.
I didn't know that there was a restriction. I've got it, and you can see. You can't see it because there's no signage on Highway 14 bypass.
So, and then right now it would have to be 16 square feet until the ordinance changes.
Is there any other additions or corrections to the findings of facts?
Okay.
Kind of an important one.
Anything else? Like I say, it's good for 3 years. That's how the board has done these in the past for first new applicants. They do them for 3 years, come back, if there's no issues or whatnot, you apply again, it gets renewed, and then we do a 5-year, or if you want to do, if things are going good and how the board feels, we could make it permanent. But for right now, the first one is for 3 years. Gives everybody a chance to see how everything's getting along, and if anything needs to be adjusted or complaints or anything we receive. So that's what kind of our standard for new conditional uses, no matter what it is, gravel pits or horse boarding arenas or dog kennels or whatever it may be. So,
No other facilities within 3 miles of town have concrete for their manure. That's a rather large expense, and if you look at the manure management plan, set up to be hauled out every twice a year, spring and fall. You already have the fall all out done before the meeting year.
that would be up to the board, but we do have other facilities, horse boarding facilities, where that is a requirement, and they have done that. So it's up to the board with their decision on that.
A smaller concrete pad could be emptied 3 times or 4 times a year, if that's easier, but you still got the expense of moving it versus the increased concrete size. So it looks to me like if we're really going to control the manure, a smaller pad, and obviously empty it sooner, more often.
Trouble with that idea is there's nowhere to haul it in summer. There's no crop ground to haul it on, so it's spring and fall, and that's about it.
Because we do have permission for the land next to us to spread in the spring and the fall.
Do you have a recommended size?
All depends on how many animals and everything are there.
I
As
know we
Richard
it
had
as a
said, there is,
requirement on the other application. It's close by, so. And I have no idea what size that one is. It'd be adequate to handle it. So I think the requirement.
Is there anything different about this place that they wouldn't need it?
Mile apart from each other.
Yeah, they're both long, a long ways off the road, really. They don't have any really close neighbors. I don't know if it would be necessary or not.
Richard, is this in the Aquifer Protection District? Zone B? I only ask because I'm not 100% sure you'd have much choice if it is. More or less have to if it's in that.
Yes, it is in the Zone B area right here, which is conducive to aquifer materials between 0 and 50 feet.
So it should be a requirement. Under Zone B. We have in other places over the aquifer. I guess I'm inclined to leave it.
Any other corrections or additions, Mr. Chairman?
Any other?
The only other question I have on there is under item 3 there. Maximum number of horses 36 and 28 indoor boarding and 8 outdoor paddock boarding. No horses left outside overnight. Is that a requirement? I mean, the one
That-
next to me has horses out overnight, and I don't have any issue with it. Do you leave horses out, or you just aren't going to?
Just not going to. I'm requiring the boarders to bring them in every night.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, that was off of their business plan, so that's where that came from.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I concur with findings of fact.
Thank you, Mr. Diedrich. With that being said, Richard, would you call the vote?
Lost my ballot. Here it is.
That's in there.
All right, Dietrich,
Aye.
Klein John,
Aye.
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Troyan,
Aye.
Jensen,
Yes.
Bartley,
Aye.
Paulson,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
and Ford.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 2022 CU 013. Mary Jo Minor has made an application 2022 CU 013 to the Brookings County Board of Adjustment for conditional Article 4 District Requirements, Chapter 4.03 LP Lake Park District, Section 4.03.02 Conditional Uses Permit Number 6, accessory buildings with a sidewall greater than 14 feet or more than 2,000 square feet, and is used as an accessory building greater than 120 square feet. The property is described as Campbell Lot Addition in the northeast 1/4 and Government Lot 1 of the northwest 1/4, excluding the south 200 feet of the north 618 feet less the east 245 feet, and excluding Block 1 Hart Addition, all in Section 33, Township 109 North, Range 50W, Madera Township. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Vanderwall. Second, who had that? Second by Jensen. Richard, would you read the staff report?
Yes. 2022 CU 013, Mary Jo Minor has applied for a Lake Park District conditional use to build an accessory building 48 feet wide by 68 feet long with a 16-foot sidewall, which is 3,072 square feet, with a 21-foot wide by 64-foot long lean-to addition with a 9-foot sidewall, which is 1,344 square feet, for a total of 4,416 square feet. The proposed structure will be used for storage of recreational personal vehicles, lawnmowers, and skid steer for snow removal. The proposed accessory building will be located on a large 20.97 acre lake lot, which will meet the setback requirements from 75 feet from the highest known water mark, 25 feet from the road, and 8 feet from the side property line. The property is located in the southeast side of Lake Campbell in the Lake Park zoning district. The property has a long driveway with lots of mature trees, and there are 2 other lake lots on the property, one for the applicant and another one for a family member, that are deeded off separately from the large lot. Some things to consider are the size of the lot, which is 20.97 acres. The lot has lots of trees that will buffer the property, and the building is set back on the property. Public notices were published in the Brookings Register on September 20th and 27th, 2022, and letters were sent to the adjoining landowners and the Madera Township Chairman and Clerk. Here's the applicant's conditional use application. Here's their site plan. Come up Clubhouse Drive, Brookings County Golf Course. Brookings Country Club is right off to the north here. On the north side of Clubhouse Drive, this is Lake Campbell over here. This is their driveway coming down into their property. First one goes into their house and personal where they live. A proposed building will be just right off here in the trees and wooded area. Other driveway comes off down to the other part, goes to their other family member's home right there. This is what the proposed building would look like. Here's the beacon map of the property. Country Club is over here. This is Clubhouse Drive, which is also would be the same as 219th Street, I believe. On the gravel road going to the east, I think it would be the same as 219th. Here's their house. Here's their other house that are deeded off, appropriately sized for the Lake Park zoning district of greater than 20,000 square feet. The driveway coming down, the proposed building would be right in this area, right there. There's just looking down the driveway, you can see the trees on either side. This is looking back towards the east from the driveway, down Clubhouse Drive. Day was out there was a golf tournament, so there was lots of cars and buses around there. So this is coming in the driveway, the main driveway. This would be the first driveway going down to their residence. Building would be located in this area right here where the clearing where they have it dug up, getting the site prepared for that. This is just going down to their house, showing their proposed site of the area. This is down farther on the driveway. You can see their house over here, little parking turnaround pad there. This would be the driveway or access to where the new building would be. There's some more pictures. This is looking to the east of where the proposed area would be. This is looking down the driveway, back out towards the country club there, showing the wooded area. They was cleaning up from trees from this spring storm. So that's all that I have. The applicant is here this evening. So
Thank you, Richard. Would you clearly state your name into the mic?
Mary Jo Minor?
Do you have anything to add to Richard's report?
No, I think he did a good job. We just are going to be storing personal recreational vehicles, camper, boat, pontoon, things we use at the lake, jet skis, and our skid steer for snow removal.
Are there any questions from members of the board at this time? Seeing and hearing none, I'll move to the public portion of the hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that is for this? Seeing and hearing none, is there anybody in the audience that is opposed to this? Seeing and hearing none, I'll now close the public portion of the hearing. Is there any additional comments or questions from members of the board? Seeing and hearing none, Richard, would you read the findings of the facts?
excuse me. Brookings County Zoning Conditional Use Permit 2022 CU013, an application for a conditional use having been filed with the Brookings County Zoning Commission, acting as the Brookings County Board of Adjustment. A copy of the application being attached here too, such application being made by Mary Jo Minor regarding the following real property. Campbell Lot Addition in the northeast 1/4 and Government Lot 1 of the northwest 1/4, except the south 200 feet of the north 610 feet, less the east 245 feet, and accept Block 1 Hard Addition, all in Section 33, Township 109 North, Range 50 West, Madera Township. After due notice, a public hearing having been held on the application on this 4th day of October 2022. Number 1, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment hereby finding that it is empowered to grant such a conditional use permit under the following sections of the Brookings County zoning ordinance. Article 4, District Requirements, Chapter 4.03, LP Lake Park District, Section 4.0302, Conditional Use Permit Number 6, further finding that the granting of the conditional use would not adversely affect the public interest. That the County Board of Adjustment further finds that it certifies that its following specific rules governing the conditional use request to have been complied with. None stated. Number 3, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment further finds that satisfactory provisions and arrangements have been made concerning the following were applicable. A, main entrance will be off Clubhouse Drive. C, off-street parking and loading areas. No on-street parking allowed. C, you guys use dumpster service now for your garbage? Okay. Dumpster service required for garbage disposal. Screening and buffering, none stated. Signs, none stated. F, required yards and other open spaces, none stated. G, comprehensive plan met for the Lake Park District. H, roads providing access, none stated. I, Required notifications of law enforcement or fire department. None stated. J, safety inspections. None stated. Number 4, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment further determines and conditions this conditional use permit upon the following additional special conditions or safeguards. A, lakefront lot parcel area is 20.97 acres with mature trees that will screen or buffer the building from the adjoining properties. B, the building will be used for personal storage of vehicles, lawnmowers, snow removal equipment, and recreational vehicles. C, no sleeping quarters to be constructed in the building. Brookings County Board of Adjustment, by at least a majority vote of its full membership, hereby grants the above petitioner a conditional use permit for the above described properties as follows. Build a 48-foot wide by 64-foot long accessory building with a 16-foot sidewall with a 21-foot wide by 64-foot long lean-to addition with a 9-foot sidewall for personal storage only. No commercial storage allowed. This conditional use permit is specifically conditioned upon initial and continued compliance with all the requirements and conditions in 3 and 4 above, and upon compliance with all applicable provisions of the Brookings County zoning ordinance. If approved, the Brookings County zoning director is authorized to issue any required building permits for construction consistent with the requirements of this conditional use permit. If this conditional use permit is not used within 3 years of the date granted, it shall be invalid. Dated this 4th day of October, 2022.
Mr. Chair, I concur with the findings of facts.
Kleinjohn.
Aye.
Vanderwall.
Aye.
Troyan.
Aye.
Jensen.
Yes.
Bartley.
Aye.
Paulson.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Dietrich.
Aye.
And Ford. Motion passes. Thank you, and you can stop in tomorrow and pick up your building permit, or anytime you would like.
Moving on, agenda item 2022 CU014. Jessica, how do you say that? McGowan?
Adronowicz.
We'll go with that. Has made an application 2022 to the CU014 to the Brookings County Board of Adjustment for conditional use. Brookings joint jurisdiction area, Article 4, agricultural, residential, and floodplain and aquifer district, section 405A, agricultural district A, section 408, special exemption, number 10, stables, and Brookings County zoning ordinance, Article 11, section 11.01A, agricultural district, conditional use permit number 12, stables. The property is described as Lot M2 of Warrior Commercial Park Edition, Lot M2 Warrior Commercial Park Edition, including vacated portion of the street in southwest 1/4 of section 18, township 110 north range 49W, Aurora Township, located at 1900 25th Avenue, Brookings, South Dakota 57006. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Motion by Bartlett. Second. Second by Kleinjohn. Richard, would you read the staff report?
Yes, 2022 CU014, Jessica Andronowicz has applied for a conditional use special exception for a horse stable located in the Brookings County, Brookings City joint jurisdictional area. This property is located at 1900 25th Avenue, Brookings, South Dakota, which is an eighth of a mile west of I-29 on Highway 14 bypass, then an eighth of a mile north on 25th Avenue. The applicant would like to board a maximum of 30 horses, put on horse clinics, camps, and events. Her business plan is attached and includes the following. The facility will be gated and locked. The maintenance and grounds plan, the manure plan, the emergency plan, points of contact, and alternate locations for horses in case of an emergency. The applicant was the manager for the former operator of the facility, Kimberly St. John, and she continues to manage and operate the facility as it was run in the past and would like to continue the business into the future. Just a little history. This is the former Neil Sebring property, and the facility has been an approved horse stable since 1997 with conditional use special exceptions being granted to several operators since that time. Just the brief history, recent history, September 3rd, 2019, conditional use 2019 CU 010 was granted to Kimberly St. John for the horse stable with the expiration date of September 3rd, 2022. July 19, it was operated by J.C. Twisted by Crystal Hemley. Before that, it was 2618. She had it also. Then it was a first year. Then it went to a 3-year on there in 2016. 2003, Christensen Investments operated the property. There back to 1997, Mr. Sebring was the original operator of the facility at that time. So it has been a horse facility since 1997. Here into the future to the current time. The City of Brookings Community Development has reviewed the request and has no objections to the request. Public notices were published in the Brookings Register on September 20th and 27th, 2022. Letters were sent to the adjoining landowners, the Aurora Township Chairman and Clerk, City of Brookings Community Development, City Street Manager, and the City County Highway Superintendent. This is their site plan. So it's 25th Avenue, I-29 off to the east, off to the right. Joining neighbors down here, long circle driveway coming into their grass and pasture areas right here, indoor arena, the barn, stable area, parking, the manure storage area, pasture, and they have drainage ways coming here through that they have maintained and cleaned out. Horses are out in the pasture right to the north and to the west. Here's their business plan. There's a beacon map of the property. This would be the areas that they cleaned out for better drainage through in there. Property was clean and neat. Everything's picked up when I was out there, as the pictures will show. This is just looking down 25th Avenue from US Highway 14 bypass. This is from the entrance going down towards Mike's house, down this way, down the gravel road. Here's the entrance going into the facility, driveway going down there. This is the pasture south of the barn. This is the main stable and area right there. This is the pasture on the west side of the driveway. This is looking towards the southwest, towards the pasture. This is the north side of the barn, continued trailer parking area. This is their manure storage area that has the cement pad and side buffers on, sidewalls on there. And this is just the lot looking north of the barn. I received no comments on this from adjoining landowners. The applicant is here this evening, and that's all that I have.
The applicant, please step forward and state your name.
Jessica Andronowitz.
Do you have anything to add to Richard's report?
No, sir.
Are there any questions from members of the board at this time? Hearing none, I'll move to the public portion of the hearing. Anybody in the audience who's for this? Anybody in the audience who's opposed to it? Hearing none, I'll now close the public portion of the hearing. Any additional comments from members of the board?
I'd like to make one. Now, it's obvious I live right across from this particular piece of property, and this conditional use ever since I've been in that property is, it's been handled well, and Jessica's done a really good job of keeping it up, and my wife would kill me if we didn't approve this. So I appreciate the work that you've done to keep the property up. It really looks nice, and we really enjoy it in the area. So obviously, I'll be voting for it.
Yes, Brookings County Zoning Conditional Use Permit 2022 CU014, an application for a conditional use permit having been filed with the Brookings County Zoning Commission, acting as the Brookings County Board of Adjustment. Copy of the application being attached here too. Such application being made by Jessica Adronowitz, which is regarding the following real property. Lot M2 of Warrior Commercial Park Edition, and Lot M2 in Warrior Commercial Park Second Edition, including vacated portion of street in the southwest 1/4 of Section 18, Township 110 North, Range 49 West, Aurora Township, located at 1900 25th Avenue, Brookings, South Dakota. After due notice, a public hearing have been held on the application on this 4th day of October 2022. Number one, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment hereby finding that it is empowered to grant such conditional use under the following sections of the Brookings County zoning ordinance. Article 11, Section 11.01, A Agricultural District, conditional use number 12, stables of the Brookings County zoning ordinance, and Article 4, Section 4.05, A Agricultural District, Section 408, special exception number 10, stables of the Brookings joint jurisdictional area. Further regarding the granting of this conditional use will not adversely affect the public interest. Number two, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment further finds and certifies that the following specific rules governing the conditional use requested have been complied with. Emergency fire and safety plan to be on file. Number three, Brookings County Board of Adjustment further finds that satisfactory provisions and arrangements have been made concerning the following were applicable. And these were the same conditions that were granted to the previous operator, her former boss, Kimberly St. John. So these were the current findings, and I want something changed, we'll have to go through there. A, entrance and exit. Current driveway is off 25th Avenue. B, no on-street parking allowed. Use on-site parking. C, utilities and refuge. Must use trash service for garbage and refuse. D, screening and buffering. None stated. E, signs. 16 square foot sign allowed. F, required yards and other open spaces. None stated. G, comprehensive plan met for the agricultural district. Number 4, Brookings County Board of Adjustment further determines into conditions as conditional use upon following additional special conditions or safeguards. Conditional use special exception 2022 CU 014 is good for 3 years or until the applicant vacates the premises, whichever occurs first. Number 2, best management practice used for manure disposal area with concrete floor and stem walls. B, insect control. C, grassland management. And D, weed control as needed. Number 3, maximum number of horses is 30 boarded horses with a maximum number of 30 horses at any one time. 4, any deceased animals to be disposed of within 24 hours. The Brookings County Board of Adjustment by at least 2/3 vote of its full membership hereby grant, that needs to be corrected here. Is that wording correct, Luke?
Just just get rid of its full membership.
Okay.
And if you want to say it the same way they do in state law, say present and voting, A-N-D voting. After present and, not presented, just present and.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the way they do it in state law.
All right. Majority vote of the members present and voting hereby grants the above petitioner a conditional use permit for the above described real property as follows. Conditional use number 12, special exception number 10, horse stables for 3 years. Expires on October 4th, 2025, or when the premises are vacated by the applicant, whichever occurs first. This conditional use permit is specifically conditioned upon initial and continued compliance with all the requirements and conditions in 3 and 4 above, and upon compliance with all applicable provisions of the Brookings County zoning ordinance. If approved, the Brookings County zoning director is authorized to issue any required building permits for construction consistent with the requirements of this conditional use permit. If this conditional use permit is not used within 3 years of the date granted, it shall be invalid. Dated this 4th day of October, 2022.
Is there any additions or corrections to the findings of facts?
Mr. Chairman, I concur with the finding of the facts.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Richard, would you call the vote?
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Troyan,
Aye.
Jensen,
Yes.
Bartley,
Aye.
Paulson,
Aye.
Erickson, Dietrich,
Aye.
Kleinjohn, and Ford.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And no one half mile away could be so much easier. Moving on,
Thank you.
agenda item number 14, department reports.
The county commission thanks the board for all your dedicated service. And from my department, you got the crops being brought in. We've already had one accident, sounds like in Brookings County. It happened at dark. I don't know the circumstances, but someone ran into the back of a farming tractor. And so just be careful out there when you're moving around. And it's not necessarily you guys, it's the people driving around you that you got to watch out for. And we do thank you for what you're doing. That's all I've got, sir. Richard, you have anything?
No, at this time, we've got just a couple items on the November agenda. November meeting will start at 7 p.m. next month, so you have to get done an hour early to come in and get your cookies and pop. And we'll be working on hopefully getting back in the track to work on the ordinance update here after the first of the year. Hopefully we can get that going, so we'll be back on that. We'll probably have a couple special meetings on that. So that's all that I have for this evening. Thanks.
Election day?
Yes, and meeting date is the first Tuesday in November, which would be November 1st. Is that it? Or is it the 2nd? Get out of the time. Be November 2nd at 7 p.m.
Alrighty.
November 1st, excuse me.
November 1st.
November 1st, yes, at 7.
Election day is November 8th, so we're good on that one.
Okay, we're ahead of them. Perfect. Is there any reason for an executive session?
No, sir.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. So it won't affect the commissioners' victory parties, right?